Hey and welcome to the EYFDM Podcast, brought to you by the EYFDM Podcast team. This podcast is accompanied by a study on listening behavior. Nadine, what's the study about?
Hey Fabian, I'm always listening to podcasts when I'm on my way to university every day. And I'm sure most of you are listening to podcasts too in your everyday life. But have you ever wondered how different podcasts influence your career choices or your personal life?
Well, if you want to find out more about the study, there's a link underneath this podcast in the bio. And now,
have fun with our EYFDM podcast.
Hi and welcome back to the 9th episode of the EYFDM podcast. My name is Fabian and again we are recording from the Netherlands, this time from Utrecht. And I've been welcomed to a very special flat next to the train tracks. So apologies if you do hear the train. I'm here with Dr. Rogier Steins, a GP specialist from the Netherlands, who's very, very interested in everything that's got to do with sports and physical activity in medicine. Very glad, Rogier, that we can record from your home today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You told me before we started that this is your first podcast. Can you tell us a bit about what was it like being asked to be on a podcast?
That's a good question. Well, actually, because I know you, I was prone to say yes, of course. But I was kind of a bit of nervous, although because English is not my first language, of course. And it's always kind of a bit of weird to talk about yourself for 30 minutes, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, also excited, of course. Trying something new and get out of your comfort zone is something I like. So yeah, definitely up for it.
When I drove over to Utrecht this morning to record this podcast, I thought about how you set up your work week. And I think you have found quite a sweet spot when you look at how other people might do general practice. Can you tell us a bit about what your work week would look like?
Yeah, so basically at the moment I work in the same practice. So it's in the center of Utrecht at the Beeldstraat. I work there 3 days a week. So usually I start a bit before 8 a.m. and then work week can be finished at 5, but that's when you're really lucky. So basically normally it ends around 6 p.m. or sometimes if you're unlucky 7 p.m. So that's on Tuesday, Wednesday and Friday. And then on Monday and Thursday, I work in Eindhoven, which is a bit further away from here. It's about a 1 hour and 30 minutes drive. And then I work actually with the Dutch swimming team.
Oh, interesting. And what would you do as a GP with the swimming team?
Yeah, so basically it's also interesting how I ended up there because I don't have...
It's not just any swimming team that you work with.
Yeah, so there are 2 swimming teams. So it's the elite swimming team that they all have placed for the Olympics this time in Paris in the summer this year. And then also the team that is working to the next Olympics in LA 2028. They're still young, of course. So I'm not a swimmer. I don't have a swimming background.
What got you interested in high performance medicine?
I guess I've always have an interest in how far you can push it as a human being in sports, but also mentally. I guess it all started with my own interest in extreme sports.
Mm-hmm. You're a kite surfer, I think, snowboarder, diver, anything I forgot?
Yeah, so I mean, it all started, I guess, when I was 12 and I got interested in inline skating.
Oh, right, skating.
And then it soon switched into skateboarding. And that was my real passion for quite some years. And then afterwards, when I quit skateboarding, when I started medical school, I was still interested in board sports, so I tried a different board sport, so wakeboarding, kite surfing, surfing. And in the beginning, surfing was the most interesting for me, but then it changed into kite surfing. But I have to be honest, like kite surfing, it's been a while now, but during COVID, when we have to keep the distance, it was a really ideal sport, actually.
And that's probably a good place to be then. Kite surfing, for you, it's quite easy to get to the sea.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. It's about a 1 hour drive from here. But you do need some equipment, but also a car and the right circumstances.
Wind, weather.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and preferably actually for your own safety, it's nice to have someone else with you. So yeah, it takes some elements and that makes it hard to go often.
Yeah.
But I really love it. And I spent some time in Aruba as a GP, a few months. And then actually, I mean, I was already taking lessons before. Yeah. But when you're in Aruba and the wind is pretty constant, then you have the chance to go very often. And that's...
How you improve quick.
Yeah, exactly. Because it can be pretty intimidating to go out when you're still a beginner, because the wind can pick up. I mean, I worked at the Mersey, actually in Den Haag, near the beach. That's been a long time ago. But then I saw some kite surfers coming in with a lot of trauma. So it can be quite dangerous if you don't know what to do.
Is that how you got interested in trauma life support?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't sure what I was going to specialize in when I was younger. I have times when I thought of being a plastic surgeon. So actually my last internship was in plastic surgery in Rotterdam. But I also really liked the GP part, to see families, to be a lifelong doctor, and also see a wide variety of patients. So, but in the beginning I was still in doubt. So I tried emergency medicine, which I really liked. And then also surgery, maybe trauma surgery. But then in the end I decided, no, I mean, I like to do these adventurous things, but maybe more in my private time. And well, I like actually being a GP.
You say that, but that kind of also explains maybe why you got so interested in sports medicine. How do you become a GP for the National Olympic team?
I guess you also need some luck, meeting the right people, but also getting out there. I mean, that would definitely be my advice, to increase your chances to get out there. So what I did, I just thought, like, what am I excited about? What is my passion? And then I start to Google, are there any courses for extreme sports medicine?
And are there?
Does it even exist? Well, actually, I found a conference then in Italy about extreme sports medicine. I mean, I wasn't sure what I was going to learn there, but I thought, why not give it a chance? So I went there, and then I came across this presentation from someone from the World Skate, which was my old passion. And still, I mean, when he spoke about skateboarding, medicine, I was, of course, really interested. And I asked him after his presentation, I went up to him, asked him, like, is there any chance I can get involved anyway? Yeah. That's how it all started, just by going up to him. He said, well, I give you this email address, just send me an email and we'll see. So that's what I did, not expecting much of it. And then I guess a few months later, they said, well, you're accepted being part of the medical team of the World Skate.
Oh, wow.
Not being sure what it entails. And at the moment, for the World Skate, it's mostly protocol work and anti-doping. But hopefully in the future, I can work in the field of play as well. Oh, wow. But to answer your question, actually, so how I got into the swimming team, so it all started with this. Then when I was in the World Skate, actually the president of the medical commission of the World Skate was not able to go to a conference in Monaco because there was COVID in Australia. So she said, maybe you can go. So I went there and I got in this meeting with the IOC, so the International Olympic Committee. And then I just met a lot of interesting people. And then I spoke to someone who was the chief medical officer of the Olympics, or the former chief medical officer from the Olympics. And we got to talk. And I said I was interested in getting into sports medicine, because I'm not a sports physician. That's a different education in the Netherlands. Okay. It's a 3-year specialty, and it's really hard to get in. I think there are only 7 people they allow every year. But it was never a consideration of mine to get into sports medicine or getting in that specialization. But this was a nice way to still be a GP, but also do something with my interest in sports medicine. Wow. And then it got quiet for some time. And then at a random moment, I got a call and they said they had a spot available. If I was interested to talk to someone to see if it was something for me, if I was suitable for the job. And that's how it all started. So a lot of little steps. A lot of little steps, yeah. Pretty unexpected to get here.
Probably not, yeah, exactly. I was going to say, probably not expected and not planned. You just ended up in that role.
Exactly. Oh, wow. I mean, nice. If you would ask me like a few years ago, this is what's going to be my job, I probably not have believed you, because as I said, I'm not a former Olympic, I'm not a swimmer, so yeah.
So that's only one of your many activities. You also mentioned Aruba, and I think you also worked as a volunteer in Moria and Lesbos in Greece. Yeah. How does that fit in? Because that's very far away from high performance medicine.
I guess it's also my first for adventure, you can say. And also one of my former colleagues from the emergency ward had worked for the Boat Refugee Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
So he had worked in Camp Moria as well. So I already knew about the possibility. And I also wanted to do something with my medical education more in the global health scene.
How did you end up there? So talk us through it. So you were in your GP training and working, doing all the hours, putting all the effort in. How did you end up going to Greece?
So this colleague from the emergency ward already planted the seed, I guess, years ago. And I was already eager to do something with my medical education. And I was looking into Doctors Without Borders. But when I looked it up, I saw that I need a few years of experience, but also you had to do it for quite some months. So
long commitment.
Yeah, I think it was 6 months minimum. So then I started looking in other opportunities and I found the Boat Refugee Foundation and it really resonated with me.
Very nice.
And then I applied, but it can take some time. You have to be patient in some of these things because there are a lot of paperwork, translations, interviews. So I guess some people can be put off because of these hooples you have to take. Yeah, but it's definitely worth it. I experienced it.
What was it like working there?
So I've only worked there for a couple of weeks, but it was really, there was a lot of going on at that moment. So when I arrived, actually, there were some people from the right extremists who came there. So the volunteers at that moment were a bit scared because there were some attacks on some of their cars. So there were actually 2 houses and they had to go to one of the houses which is more from the center of the city. And also when we were there, a fire started in the camp. So a lot of different things why it was different than a normal situation. But for me, I mean, working with different types of doctors, I was already a GP back then. So
that was after specialty training, but you'd applied during specialty training?
Yeah.
Right.
So for me, it was really special to have this kind of a leading role as well for the first time. So young doctors were going up to me to discuss a patient, for example. And the other thing that I really liked is that it was a really tight team. So in a hospital, for example, the setting I was used to as well, you have big teams, you don't know each other sometimes, but this time we had a small team, you have to really depend on each other, and that really, you get a real tight bond because of this, and it also makes the work with sometimes complex patients easier. And of course, it was really nice to give care for these vulnerable patients. In the Netherlands, there are also a lot of vulnerable patients, of course, but it's just a different setting. These people all really need basic help.
At the same time, you make it sound so easy. How did you manage to take leave and just go for a couple of weeks or months even out of your life and just do this other stuff? How do you manage that?
I guess for me, the trick was to do it always in between periods where I could take time off. So in between jobs, after specialty training. And of course, even now when I'm a GP, I mean, it's harder to take off longer periods of time. But if you discuss it with your work in advance, and you also find colleagues who are also have a broader interest and can relate to it, then it's easier to take time off, I guess.
The reason I ask this is because you didn't just stop at high performance medicine, refugee medicine, but you went away several times to be a boat doctor on cruise ships and research ships in the Antarctica and also I think around Spitsbergen in the Arctic.
Yeah, so I've been there 3 times in total. So 1 time to Spitsbergen and twice to Antarctica.
How long did you stay on those boats?
So actually not that long. So that's why it's possible for a lot of GPs, I guess. So usually around 2 or 3 weeks.
Oh, wow.
The first time was Spitsbergen for me, which is a bit more close by compared to Antarctica, of course. So I guess that was a good start, but you're not sure what you're getting yourself into, of course. So I like to get out of my comfort zone, but when the time gets closer, then...
So how did you get into it? I mean, I see you having done all this sports medicine, having finished your training, having done all this refugee medicine. How did you end up on a boat in the Arctic?
That started quite some time ago, I guess, and sometimes you have to be patient because...
Again, you have to be patient.
So that started quite some time ago, actually. I already applied for it years and years ago when I had the interest to do something else, I guess something different with my doctor or GP training.
So you were quite outgoing, I guess, during your training. You were looking left and right, and you wanted some more action, I guess, in your GP life.
Yeah, I guess
nice.
I experienced during my medical school already that it can take some time to do the paperwork, and sometimes it's uncertain whether you can go or not. But I experienced it always paid off in the end. And also, I think when you have these experiences, it really helps you to grow as a person and also as a doctor, of course. So during my medical school, for example, I went to Cape Town, South Africa to work there in trauma. Trauma surgery hospital. And also for my research, I went to Calgary, Canada, for example. I guess these experiences really form me to look out there to see what is possible, because it's just such great opportunities to grow.
So many of our listeners, including me, probably can't imagine what it's like being a boat doctor. Can you tell us a bit about what it's like working on a boat?
Yeah, definitely. I can definitely relate, because when I got into this, I also wasn't sure what to expect. So I asked some doctors that gave some presentations about this subject, actually. I emailed them and asked them what it's like, how I can prepare. So that's also one of my advices, of course, when you get into this. So I had some knowledge before already when I started, and I asked them as well, like, what kind of training do I need?
And what kind of training do you need?
Well, of course it helps when you're GP, because you know a lot about a little instead of a specialist who usually knows a lot about a little. And I also had my emergency training and my surgery training, so I guess that helped already. But then I also did an advanced wilderness life support course. So basically a course for medicine when you're out there, when you don't have a lot of supplies. Yeah, how to handle a patient in the outdoors.
Did you have any problematic cases up there or down there?
Yeah, I mean, so the usual suspects are there, of course. So seasickness is, I mean, it's not that terrifying or complex, but it's one of the most common things you will encounter. And besides seasickness, of course, your general infections. So that's why it's good if you're a GP. And you also have to know what is on the ship, of course. So beforehand, you get a list of the passengers and the crew. You get their medical history. You also know what is on board. So what kind of medication, what kind of equipment. Do I feel comfortable with that equipment, or do I need some extra training for this? But besides the common things, of course, there are also accidents. I mean, it's a moving ship. They call it an expedition cruise. So you have to be a little adventurous to get on board of the ship. And basically, there are really heavy doors, which can cause a lot of trauma when there's a storm. And also, I think one of the most dangerous parts, if you will, is when you get off the ship into these small inflatable boats. We call them zodiacs. And you have waves, you have wind. That's definitely a moment where people can have an ankle fracture, for example, or fall on their head when they use blood thinners. I mean, normally that's already something to really worry about, but definitely when you're on a ship in Antarctica and you don't have a helicopter any moment to evacuate the patient. So yeah, that can give some hectic moments, of course.
Did you have any severe things you had to handle on those boats that you want to share?
Well, the thing I mentioned before, so it can be really tricky when somebody falls on their head and have blood thinners. Luckily, that all ended well, of course, for me, and the patient. So luckily, no evacuation was needed. And one of the other things I forgot to mention is more dangerous moment is the Drake Passage. So that the Drake Passage is, so when you go to Ushuaia in the south of Argentina, you go south to Antarctic and you cross the Drake Passage, which is a really treacherous passage with a big history of shipwrecks. But yeah, the ship will move a lot and people can fall. And the heavy doors I mentioned. So sometimes people also need stitches.
Right.
And when you're a doctor, you don't want to get seasick. So you usually wear seasickness patches, but one of the side effects is blurry vision. So if you have to stitch someone with blurry vision and the ship is moving from left to right and all your equipment is also going from left to right in the ship, that's a more complex situation than just do some sutures in your own GP practice.
It's probably very hard to prepare for that experience. All right, as you might know, we have this really fun game. I hope it's fun anyway. That we've played in the last episodes, adapted from a German podcast, and it contains 50 word pairs, and all you have to do is pick and choose which one you like best, or for whatever reason. You can give us that reason afterwards. You can always skip or say next if you are unsure or hesitant. And I guess the key to answering it is not to think about it too much.
All right.
Are you ready?
Yes, let's go.
Skating or diving?
Skating.
Swimming or kitesurfing?
Skip.
Ship doctor or high performance physician?
High performance physician.
Diving medicine or advanced trauma life support?
Dive medicine.
Humanitarian medicine or general practice?
General practice.
General practice or family medicine?
Family medicine.
Organizing a congress or seeing patients?
Seeing patients.
Prison medicine or general practice?
General practice.
Medical care at Moria or medical care at Aruba?
Medical care at Moria.
UMC, so UMC Utrecht or Boat Refugee Foundation?
Boat Refugee Foundation.
Surgery or emergency medicine?
Emergency medicine.
Sports or mountain medicine?
Sports medicine.
Sports or diving medicine?
Sports medicine.
Sports medicine or advanced life support in the wilderness?
Advanced life support in the wilderness.
Yeah, so many things we have to talk about. So, medical journalism or medical practice?
Medical practice.
Grote Schuur or Diakonessenhuis, if that's pronounced correctly?
Yeah, Grote Schuur.
Cape Town University or Rotterdam University?
Ooh, skip.
EYFDM or NHG, which is Nederland Huisgartengenootschap. That's not how to pronounce it, I guess.
EYFDM.
WONCA or EYFDM?
EYFDM.
Pre-conference or forum?
Pre-conference.
EYFDM Council or Executive?
Council.
Europe or Netherlands?
Netherlands.
Training or being trained?
Ooh, training?
Trainee or trainer?
Trainer.
On or off the beaten track?
Off, definitely.
Eindhoven or Witte Ruin? However you pronounce it.
Oh, I can't choose. Skip.
Actively doing sports or watching sports?
Doing sports.
Spitsbergen or Antarctica?
Antarctica.
Diving or ship doctor?
Ship doctor.
Sun or snow?
Snow.
Coffee or tea?
Tea.
Beer or wine?
Beer.
Heineken or Carlsberg?
Heineken.
English or French?
English.
English or Dutch?
Dutch.
English or German?
English.
Fighting poverty or fighting disease?
Fighting disease.
Holiday or conference travel?
Holiday.
Being too cold or too warm?
Too cold.
Self-sufficient or working as a team?
Working as a team.
Leave or stay in your comfort zone?
Leave.
Polar bears or seals?
Polar bears.
Gloves or hats?
Gloves.
Keeping busy or conscious steps?
Keeping busy.
Family or fame?
Family.
Money or fame?
That's
That's a tough one.
Yeah. Not sure. Skip.
Success or well-being?
Well-being.
Autonomy or recognition?
Autonomy.
Working holiday or holiday work?
Working holiday.
Today or tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
Thank you. That was it. Can you tell us how to pronounce Eindhoven and where your practice is? Bitte, how do you pronounce it?
Witte Vrouwen.
Bitte Frauen. Yeah, that was my bad Dutch pronunciation.
That was pretty good.
So that's in Utrecht.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, in the center.
One of the pairs was medical journalism or medical practice. Why did you pick up another field of interest, medical journalism?
Yeah, I guess that just happened by coincidence.
Again.
Yeah, so when I came back from the trip to Antarctica as a ship's doctor, you always have a handover with another doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And that was actually Shauna, who was then the lead editor and the head of Adventure Medic. So she asked me, like, we got to talk, and she asked me, like, hey, would you be interested to get involved in Adventure Medic? And I remember at that moment I was still starting in Eindhoven as the doctor for the athletes. So I said, well, sorry, I have to be maybe later. Mm-hmm. And then when I got a bit more experienced working in Eindhoven, I thought, well, that's actually a nice opportunity. I give her a call or a text. And then that's actually how it started. And at first, I just started to write a few articles about my experience working as a doctor for the elite athletes. But also, well, I started writing a few articles about my work as a doctor for elite athletes. But then, yeah, I got really excited. And I noticed that I didn't have team recommendations articles. So basically what I do now, every 3 months I write an article about Adventure Medic team recommendations. So it contains a book, podcast, and a movie or a series that is interesting for our audience. So I had some books on the table, and one of them is The Art of Risk, for example. The writer is the anesthesiologist who saved the soccer team from the Thai cave. So some books or podcasts that are interesting for our audience.
Oh, very interesting. So what I do wonder, how do you manage to do all these things in one career? What's the secret? How do you do GP work, sports medicine, ship medicine, refugee medicine, being a medical journalist? How do you make that work and have a personal or social life? It looks, from the outside, I'm amazed. I don't know how do you sleep?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I think it also has to do with, finding out what your interest lies. So for me, of course, I like medicine, but I also like other things. And I tried in the past, at a moment, I tried to find out how to combine them. So I thought, what am I passionate about? I mean, what makes my eyes sparkle when I talk about a certain subject? And then I found out it's still adventure in general, but also extreme sports. And at some point I was also thinking about what is the combination, or why do I like these topics? And I guess it's in all those areas you need to push boundaries. And to answer your question, how do I find time? I guess when you are really passionate about it, it also takes up less time, or it feels less like work. And I also try to combine it with some of my holidays. So when I take time off for a holiday, also do a working holiday, still feels like a holiday, but different.
That's why you picked working holiday over holiday work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being with us today. Is there anything that you can tell or recommend our listeners that they should look out for if they want to get into similar career or similar areas of interest? Is there anything that you can recommend?
Yeah, I think it all starts with taking action. So it can be hard to find out what you want, and if there's a possibility to do something like this, it helps when you talk to people who are talking about these kind of subjects. So if sometimes people give a presentation about adventure medicine or wilderness medicine, and find mentors. So write them an email, take action, go to a presentation, and afterwards ask them how you can get involved. That's a lot of the times that's how I got involved. And also, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say that, but you can go to the website of Adventure Medic, because there are a lot of articles about opportunities like this. It's a non-profit website to have a look on that. And also just Google it. If you have something in mind you're passionate about and you're not sure if it exists, just try to look out for it. And a lot of times I was also surprised, and you'll probably be surprised, that there is a combination of medicine and anything you're interested in.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I think we will see Rogier in Dublin. So you could also go and say hi to him at the pre-conference or the next WONCA conference. And I think he will be quite happy to talk to you. So
definitely.
That would also be a good option, I guess.
For sure. Yeah.
Because something that we haven't mentioned yet, he's also the EYFDM council member for the Netherlands. So there's an entire field of things that we could talk about, but we need to let him go to finish his busy work day. Thank you so much for being on this podcast. A great pleasure.
Yeah, thank you too, man.
And I look forward to seeing you in Dublin.
Definitely. In Dublin, by the way, there will also be some presentations from the Global Health SIG. So try to make it there as well.
So that's a recommendation if you want to meet Rogier and ask him something.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you very much.
You too.